So I'm delighted today to introduce you to Ulla Mueller, who has a career stemming back many, many years in international development, and in particular with regard to being an advocate for human rights, whatever that means in its various forms. Welcome, Ulla.
Thank you very much, Maggie.
It's great to have you here, and I'm running a series of talking to different leaders that we work with, asking them to share their experiences of leading through this time. So I really welcome you sharing your insights today from your own experience of now working as a representative for the UNFPA in Nigeria, the United Nations Population Fund. And in particular, I know that you have been leading on COVID-19 as the coordinator for the UN in Nigeria. So an enormous task and absolutely critical for those living in Nigeria. So it's going to be wonderful to hear about your experiences today. So a huge job, a huge at a time when, I mean, the word unprecedented has been overused through this time, but you know, immense. And you're leading this in Nigeria. I mean, what are the challenges that you've faced into during this time? You know, the greatest challenge that you've needed to face as a leader?
I think the greatest challenge that you can really talk about is making it believable that this is actually a pandemic and that we are quite powerless if we don't think through how we get it right in terms of prevention. In a time where everyone has gotten used to that there's a treatment for everything. You go to the doctor and you get your pill, you get whatever. To be in a situation where we don't have a cure. We don't have any drugs that we know for a fact is a cure. We don't have a vaccine and we can't see what's coming. And to make that real for people, especially in a country where there is a lot of other challenges, especially around health, is actually very difficult. And I think that exposure also of our vulnerabilities as humans and how powerless we can still be, getting your head around that, I think, is quite challenging. And getting, you know, people to understand how critical it is that we do understand that, so we take precautions. I think that's been a huge challenge.
And as you and I have talked about, I mean, COVID-19 is a complete leveler. It doesn't take, you know, any regard of how wealthy somebody is, you know, the demographics. It doesn't take any regard of anything.
I think it is, and you know, and we talk a lot about in these days about diversity and inclusiveness. And I think for me, but I don't think, for me, that's not necessarily a challenge. I think maybe that's something we can carry with us in how we see each other and engage just as human beings, is that COVID-19 is all inclusive. It really doesn't differentiate. It doesn't care what gender you have. It doesn't care what color you have, what nationality you have. And that's one of the things we really share. And I think it could be a strength for us as human beings and for humanity, is that in that we all share and are equal in our vulnerabilities. Because there really is, you cannot buy a cure because it doesn't exist. Actually, you are equally exposed. You know, it's the vulnerability, that's equity and equality, I think. Also new times, because we are not used to being totally equal as humankind. And I think not a bad thing to learn, because we really are equal.
It's amazing to think of COVID-19 as teaching us that.
Yeah, it really is, yeah.
Mm.
But we can choose to see that as an opportunity to rethink our engagement and our interactions with each other, and seeing that how we are really connected. Something I think we forget very often, because there is this issue around having these great careers and seeing this world, and there's this, everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame. You know, there's all of these things that's been happening in society before COVID. And then this happens, and it gives us time to reflect, and it's an opportunity for us to take a breather and think through whether we do get it right. Because if we we're not actually able to have some kind of protection framework around humanity. If we are rendered powerless, then what is it we need to think about in our interconnectedness that gives us some more resilience? Because I do think COVID has also showed that we're not as resilient as we think.
Mm.
The world has come to almost a standstill at some point. And that means there's something around our resilience as human beings that isn't there. And maybe also there's something around in that isolation that we end up with across borders that is just not right, because we end up becoming introverted in a time where the only cure is to be extroverted and all-inclusive.
In terms of what that then means to you as a leader for the future, you know, what are you going to be preserving in your leadership for the future, or that you've learnt from this time that will really inform your leadership for the future?
I think a few things. So maybe just for a little bit of context, as you also know, Maggie, I came here, actually, I arrived almost at the same time as COVID.
Yeah.
My first day in office was literally the same day as the index case in Nigeria, which was a bit surreal. And that in a country like Nigeria, where I have 4 sub-offices, so UNFPA have 4 sub-offices here, all of a sudden I couldn't travel and meet my team, right? And at the same time, UN in Nigeria have continued to operate. Even though we send people home working from home, our operations have to, and by and large have actually continued. And this means that I had to find a way whereby I could balance both managing my team and getting credibility as a leader in a time where I couldn't be face to face with the vast majority. And at the same time, I had to think through, how do we make sure that we can actually continue to operate? So in UNFPA as an agency, but also what is it? And that was a joint UN thinking. What do we need to do to make sure that our staff feel safe? Mm. So for me, I think there's 2 big takeaways. One is about serving. So we very often talk about how we support and how we help. And I think when we talk about help and say, I'm going to help doing A, B, C, D, very often we have a predefined version of what that help will look like. And that means that there's a risk of being a little bit, imposing solutions. And what I've learned from COVID is that anything I had to offer to help anyway probably wouldn't work, because this is so unprecedented. But really figuring out that what I need to do is serve. So how do I serve, in this case, the people of Nigeria? And how do I serve my team in UNFPA? And how do I serve the UN? It's really, for me, that's been a change in my leadership. It's much more focusing on how do I serve, still wanting to help, but really how do I serve in this time and age humanity the best way? Where can I make a difference? I think that's one thing I'm going to take with me, that's thinking as I go forward. And a lot of humility comes with that, because my own insignificance becomes so real in a COVID situation. So that's really something that I think, that humble pie, I think you say in English, you need to take some humble pie. That's definitely going to be something I learned. And then with regards to my team, I think the importance of authenticity. So the only way that I knew how to really connect with my team was actually making that, we talk a lot about it in leadership for many years, how important it is. But to a very extent, it also became a little bit just of the jargon. But really understanding what it means to just put yourself out there and being 100% authentic. And the difference it makes for your team, because it also allows them to open up. So explaining to my team how I've been feeling about my own fears of losing my husband. He was sick from COVID, and what it's like to go to bed every night and wonder if you'll speak to him tomorrow morning. Not being afraid to show them that I'm sad, that I'm crying sometimes, that I miss my family, because we also ask teams not to travel, so they are also separated from their families. That empathy that lies in authenticity, I think, is important, and not holding back. I think many leaders, and myself inclusive in the past, we'll be authentic to a certain extent, and then we will stop it because we think we're protecting ourselves. And the minute you do that, you also close one of the most important avenues to have your team trust in you, because they will mimic what they see. And what I've experienced here is that it has protected me, actually, that I've just completely been honest. It has given me strength, and it has enabled and allowed my team to reach out to me and say, actually, we share that. My husband was sick, or I'm afraid I'll be sick. My wife is a health worker. What do I do? You know, having those conversations in a place where it has not made me vulnerable at all. If anything, it's made me a lot stronger. And that's something to learn from. But actually, if you really just open up, the vulnerability is gone.
Yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes it's easy to think, oh, am I going to look weak, you know, if I express my feelings around this? It's a natural concern, but now it strengthens the relationship. Yeah. As you look to the future, and somebody that I know, you know, always has that humanitarian lens, you know, what are your hopes for the future, Ulla?
I hope we do not forget. I hope that we will remember what we've learned. You know, I was so struck by, and you saw that also on my another post and another conversation we had on, I saw 100-year-old advice on COVID, and you know, it's pretty much the same as we saw today. Yeah, it's almost identical. And I just hope that we will remember that shared vulnerability. I hope that we will remember that you can hoard all the richness in the world, but it's not going to protect you from a thing like COVID. I hope that we will remember that as human beings, as you know, in our humanity, if we do not really put action and feeling and commitment behind what we heard said so many times about all these world leaders, Maggie, who said we stand with each other in solidarity. We do not transform that into actually our thinking, how we lead others, how we design the world, what's going to be the vision for the new world order after this, because there's going to be changes. Where does that leave us? So my hope is that we remember this, and remember that without each other, we are really nothing. That old saying about the weakest link is so true. And we have to carry each other. So no matter that sense of just shared vulnerability, shared humanity, and understanding the equality, no matter where we come from and who we are. I hope we carry that with us.
Ulla, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today, and for your words of reflection and your words of wisdom. It's been an honor to work alongside you during this time, and I really wish you well as you continue as the representative in Nigeria, and send my very best also to the people of Nigeria. And I have a part of my heart that lies in Africa from all the many clients I've worked with there. So it's lovely to connect with you today. And thank you so much for your time. And for those of you that are listening, I will put in the link to the article that Ulla was referring to below in the comments. Ulla, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Thank you for having me and for being here. Thank you, and stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.